three roles in India which are the most toughest one in a crisis.
Ministry of
RBI
Finance
governor,
and Central Bank.
RBI governor, chairman of LIC, chairman of SBI. And these are the three toughest role in the Indian economy when the economy goes through a crisis, because all calls go there, all eyes go there. And whatever they do is judged with various filters, and we never understand their pressures and constraints.
Today, Srini, with his grey hair, will discuss with us banking. We have with us Srinath Sridharan, who is an independent markets commentator. He has been writing for Business World various kinds of columns, very wisdomful columns. He's also a guest columnist at various other publications. What is happening with the banking sector of late? And if we corroborate the developments which have happened in the last 5 years, let me rewind a little. Starting from 2018, let's go 2 years ago. ILFS happened, then PMC happened, then Punjab National Bank, Nirav Modi, Vijay Mallya. We have been inundated with a lot of issues in the banking sector. I mean, is it the lack of intent on the banker side? How should we improvise the banking sector, especially as far as the NPAs are concerned? And does this theory hold true? Because I've been speaking to a lot of economists. Whenever there has to be a giving up of loans, it is on the expense of the taxpayers' money. But whenever there has to be a selling of a bank, the private shareholders benefit. So is it nationalization of laws and privatization of profit? How does this work?
Yeah, I don't believe so. And I don't think so even as a professional. I believe that the public sector banks have not got enough credit. अगर वो नहीं होते, will the real economy, the mainstream industries, SMEs, MSMEs, agriculture, would they have got credit access? I have my question mark. So sometimes while we can have rightful criticism about the banks, about NPAs and recognition, but simple cheese hai na, what is the business of finance? What is the business of lending? Pricing your risk is finance business. It's as simple as that. Or 100% recovery kabhi nahi hoga. NPAs होंगे, you might have an NPA of 0.5%, 1%, 5%, 10%, वो segmental है, अलग-अलग होगा. And as long as you can provide for it with your capital, as long as your investors trust you and give you further capital, it's a simple math. So ये जो yo-yo चलता है हमारे let's say overall industry में या माहौल media, social media में saying that इस बार retail is a bad shape, corporate lending is bad, wholesale lending is bad. अरे भाई हर एक इंडस्ट्री चाहिए हमें. If somebody doesn't finance your roads and ports and highways, if somebody doesn't finance houses, somebody doesn't finance consumers, somebody doesn't finance SME and SME, how will our economy grow? So it is all like 5 different fingers that we have. Each of them have a different size and shape and a different functionality. आप try करो, कोशिश करो without one finger to work and pick a spoon and eat, नहीं होगा. So it is as simple as that. So I think it is more about more drama that we have seen unfold, and I call it the flavor of the season. इस season में quarterly ये नहीं करना है. क्यों?
But Srini, I get what you are saying, and you are right from where you come. But do you think that the gross violation of NPAs which has happened in the last many years, all this is media hype? This does not exist?
So I think what has happened in the last few years is regulator has clearly demanded recognizing NPAs clearly. And I think that's a good start completely. If you are in the lending business, you know for a fact that आपका 100% collections recoveries तो नहीं होगा. Definitely. And it is very, very common that commercial decisions have to be left to those who are taking those calls. अगर आप chief credit officer हो या CEO या MD हो of a bank or a non-bank, you will have to take those calls and you will have to take it to your board to get it approved. So in this, I think outsiders, apart from the participants there, you and me can only conjecture saying they could have done this, they could have done that. So within the, let's say, the limited stakeholder of a company like that, a financing company, stakeholders कौन-कौन आजकल, starting from consumers to the company. You also have shareholders, bondholders, debt holders, banks who are given loans, if you're listed, all of them.
But Srini, if you look at the ILFS, okay, the credit rating agencies are also one of the core revenue models in such cases. There was a question mark which was raised that the same credit agencies which seek the loan also give credit rating approvals. So is there some deficiency in the model? Should we rework the model?
So that the regulator has been very, very quick enough to point out, and that has been corrected some time ago, that credit rating agencies cannot also offer advisory beyond a certain point, and that has been taken care. So yes, you can always ask, did they not know before? Could they have not taken this decision before a issue cropped up? Well, we don't know their push constraints and pressures. If you look at simple concept of could they have acted before, we can only be speculating. Did they act? Yes, they acted well in time. They've penalized those credit rating agencies. And will it deter others from acting on it? Probably yes. But what we can also do further is to push adequate, faster supervision.
Exactly.
Because the point is, the stakeholders, consumers take pride and sleep well that हमारा regulator है, वो देखेंगे. And that is something which is a moral high ground and pressure that our regulators have, and they've kept it up so well. And if you look at all the, let's say, the issues over the last few years, or even if you look back the last 20 years of NPAs of the entire banking system, while by number it will sound larger, but on the overall actual credit dispensation, it is okay. It is completely acceptable numbers. So there are some segments, like if you talk about, let's say, venture capital, which is a completely different ballgame, your failure rate is far higher there, but it is an equity that is put to risk. In a banking sector or in the finance sector where you lend, that you will have to take a segmental exposure.
So you think that overall the space is fine, all it needs is time-to-time regulation, time-to-time watchdog. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. I think instead of being watchdog, all I would say is, somewhere when you say regulator or supervisor, regulatory supervisor, we think policing. I think we should move away from policing. Can we do predictive analytics? Can we do proactive supervision? Which means आजकल सब कुछ digital है. Everything is digital, right? Every finance company's data is available digitally. Every bank server is linked digitally. Can't our regulators use them to run analytical model at the back end and look at supervision which get flagged off?
This recent RBI internal working committee report, where they asked for corporatization of banks, where they asked more and more industries to come and own banks. You did write a column on it on Business World, but here I would like to hear it from the horse's mouth first. What is your opinion on that?
The point is, yes, we need new license. We are an underbanked country. And why do we need new license? Because you cannot have concentration risk of owners of large market share of banks. Do corporate houses deserve a license? If you theoretically say yes, how do we know the measurement of where their debt exposure is? In today's supervision, we have different financial services regulators. Are they all interlinked in terms of their supervision? Are they all digitally linked? No, the answer is no. So what if, let's say, technically a corporate entity, let's say a promoter of a bank, has borrowed money from a life insurance company and is defaulting, or you know that he's going to default? Are our systems speaking to each other? Is our, let's say, the data that, let's say, each of our regulators have, the credit rating agencies have, the capital markets, debt markets, are they all interlinked to each other? My point is, we will have to interlink supervision of entire BFSI together. And then whoever owns, in real time, you can always say, you know what, Abhinav, you own a bank license and I can track you real time wherever you go, whatever you do, including your subsidiaries, because आपका पूरा कुंडली है मेरे पास. I know your PAN, I know your DIN, I know your companies you own, I know your family, I know your family and friends, associate companies, subsidiaries. You can track them. Is technology available today for it? Yes. Can we just imagine this? 10 years ago, did we think something like an Aadhaar was a possibility and how that would impact offering of public services that the government is offering as subsidiaries? Can we offer it as KYC for financial services? No. I am saying it is a moment for integrated digital supervision in real time for all financial services.
But Srini, I appreciate your giddy optimism, but not many people share your opinion. You know, all this looks good on paper, and you are right that all this can be tracked. We are all digitally enabled. Now, this is based on the assumption, on an idealistic assumption that everything will happen the way it is meant to happen, or it should happen. But our history has always suggested that, and like Raghuram Rajan mentioned in his column recently, that we cannot allow the borrower to own the bank. And there have been equally supportive and against the arguments in this context. So how do you plan to address these concerns?
See, one, if you're saying borrower in India cannot own a bank or a part of a bank, we must address the first priority of deepening our debt markets. Our debt markets are almost bilateral trades. The government of India also has a conflict of interest because it is one of the single largest borrower in the debt markets.
Exactly.
So unless we address that, and government of India also owns banks and NBFCs and other institutions which also borrow from the same debt market or which also plays in the capital markets.
Exactly.
And which also appoints the regulators. So by principle, you have many conflict of interest that have no answers. So we'll have to live with those constraints. The point I'm trying to say is I'm not very idealistic here. I think technology today is available, but it is more about the intent. For example, a few years ago, we also spoke about the FSLRC concept of how do we look at finance or the finance world as an integrated one, and how do we cut cuts and slices of that. Suddenly, we have forgotten that, right? I mean, it has been lying in cold storage. So it is just that every time we have an idea, we will have to also history teaches us something. What did not work 10 years ago might have been too early for its time, but it might work today. 20 years ago when dot-com boom started and it became a bust, it was too premature because people did not adopt to digital or internet. But aaj aap dekho, we have more keypad literate Indians than actual literate Indians. हर एक के पास मोबाइल फोन तो है.
Shini, आपकी बात एकदम correct है, but if I take our viewers 30-35 years ago, only private banks existed, and then we went to nationalization of banks because a concept called RRB did not exist at that time. Rural regional banks who go to the interiors of the country and give a loan on a buffalo. If we allow the stake to be risen to 26% and eventually 51%, where does it leave the majority of the population in this country who do not have access to banks or the banking system, the formal banking economy? And we are talking about inclusion of every Indian into the banking ecosystem. And the other side of the argument that corporates are driven by profit. How should we balance out?
So I think there fundamentally everything is driven by profit. My very first point about PSU banks was that they don't get enough credit that they deserve because they do things, they lift weight which others don't. The government of India has that socialist approach, and rightfully so. But even to give access to credit in a town which has only 50,000 people, I think there are fundamentally microfinance institutions who have been doing it. But what we need to do, and they're all licensed and they're all regulated. Let's accept that first. We cannot take away that credit from them. The point is, do they have access to debt markets? If we improve and deepen our debt markets, we can actually improve the way they function. We can actually make them profitable. They are profitable. If they are not profitable, they are not going to be in that business. So RRB or any of those, when they came up, there was an objective. So let's say aaj abhi aap banking categories dekho, the last 40 years of Indian banking or let's say Indian lending space, bahut sare categories hai. And we have come to a stage where we have added category but not actually deleted categories. And history has also told us that when we design a function, design a framework of any design that we do, you'll have to look at constraints then and what was the genesis of why that particular element is there in that design. So what if we go back to the drawing board and say, yaar, itna sara categories hai, are they relevant anymore? Are they manageable more? Which is important from the fiscal system. That if you cannot supervise, if you cannot manage them, if you cannot control them, and if you don't know what they're up to, some of them can become miscreant element, which only brings a bad name to the industry. While the actual proportion of amount of value that you have lost, it could be less than 0.01%.
The way Indian banking system has functioned till now, everything is like Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan till you get punched in the face. Everybody is sweet on paper here till they are put in a situation. Whenever the government is lacking in fiscal deficit, it borrows from the RBI, the bottom lines are squeezed, the private sector banks are used the way they would want to be used, the government banks are squeezed in the way maximum as possible. I remember that we had this subsidy debate whether petroleum products should be subsidized or not. And there was a debate about dividend extraction from RBI last year. Now, the situation is the times which we are living in, there's a huge amount of trust deficit. we talk about fiscal deficit, we talk about other deficits. There's a lot of trust deficit in the Indian banking system, which is coming not only from retail investors, but also common man.
Start about any of the banking crisis and the proportion of the value that it has served, there are two aspects to it. That did we act on time and did we act quick enough? It is like a disease. Any issues, crisis, theft, fraud, or regulatory issue is it's like a disease or an illness. Can you act quick and fast enough and cure enough? I mean, it's a simple philosophy. At the same time, I think we'll also have to give credit to the regulator, because to solve some things, today we have the method of IBC. We also have the NCLT process.
Yes, we'll come into that as well.
But these are the new structural framework, right? They don't get themselves solved overnight. It takes time. And to the regulators' credit, they're keeping pushing at it. And you also have the pulls and pressures of various stakeholders, which means it could be one of the ECB bondholders sitting outside who has an issue with something, or you also have the moral high ground that we need to play, because it is also the livelihood and the wealth that, let's say, the depositors have credited and trusted with that financial institution with. We need to protect that as well.
When we talk about our banking system, how aware are they as far as cybersecurity is concerned? Because the maximum negligence or the maximum amount of frauds which happen in the banking system today, most of them are because of consumer negligence. So do you think that there has to be more awareness generated as far as cybersecurity is concerned? That's one. Number two, have Indian banks been able to adapt to the new technological changes, especially cybersecurity, in today's context?
So the answer to both is yes. I think there's adequate protection on cybersecurity, digital layers, everything. More importantly, I think it's about financial literacy. And here I draw analogy to something that the BFSI professionals like me always have a challenge. If you talk about financial planning as a concept, it is actually the finance professional who are late in doing that than the common man. So it's like this, it's a blind spot. So the fact is, how do we educate our people simply? But we overcomplicate things. Can you give somebody a tool saying that, sir, agar aisa call aaya, don't pick up? And today, I think with the advent of almost everybody on the phone, and when I say everybody, I'm not talking about only the educated, the formally educated, English-speaking city. I'm talking about the WhatsApp generation, if we call it, WhatsApp or Telegram or Joby. I think people are very aware how to use tools. And as more and more banks and financial institutions move on to the WhatsApp platform or any other platform, they have to start using that as a literacy program as well. Because it is measurable. Aapne message bhej diya and somebody has read it. You can track that he has read. And if you link it to a chatbot and agar unko kuch chahiye, they want to ask you a question, they can ask you back. And that's a great consumer engagement as well, right? I mean, we are the only nation in the world which invented the concept of missed call alert, missed call as a concept. So digitally we are as a use karo. So I am a big believer that digital is a key, and I'm not talking only from the cities. You travel interland India, har ek ke paas to phone rehta hai. You talk to microfinance organizations, their consumers are having mobile phones, they use technology, they are connected. WhatsApp to chalta hi hai. If you cannot read, aap simple audio message bhej do saying that record karke kar do. There are ways and means to reach. We will have to think about frugal innovation. Frugal innovation means, how do I impact at micro level, not at macro level? How do I reach that one guy, dairy farmer, jisko 20,000 rupiya chahiye and who doesn't read?
You know, Srini, again, the thought is extremely good on paper, and I like your optimism. We did a story last year on cybersecurity. Late Vijay Mukhi was one of the prime hosts there. And according to a survey, more than 90% of banking frauds are not even reported by the banks. And they happen on a daily basis. So, all these conversations that banks are aware in real life, on ground, it doesn't work that. I mean, 90% of bank frauds are not even reported. Banks are do not want that exposure to come out. So we are living in a different reality from what you have been trying to project.
So I'm saying the other way around. I'm saying that absolutely. I mean, you have a point, but more importantly, it is also the consumers. Let's say I get cheated. A lot of times I don't want to speak about it because मैं सोचूंगा यार embarrassing है यार लोग क्या सोचेंगे. So what is the incentive for me to come out? And how do I not look like a fool? Let's look at it that way. Can our regulators stand up and say, ये hotline number है, आप message कर दो, your data will be kept anonymous and we will investigate. And if they act on it and if they give a charter saying that we will solve it in 60 days, 90 days, आपको ये वापस मिल जाएगा, then there is a sense of trust that which will get built. But again, as I said, somewhere we have a feeling that regulation is about policing and it is not about predictive or proactive. The moment we realize that we are all in the consumer industry and consumer is queen or king, including the regulator if they think like that, it'll be magic. But hierarchy to hai. It is unfortunately become, the industry is looking like us versus them. अरे हम साथ में हैं. We are here all for the consumer. If the consumers don't exist, none of us will exist, be it the industry or the regulators or the supervisors.
I was talking to one of the senior bankers in the industry, Srini, one of the senior private sector bankers. I won't take his name, but you can assume that he's amongst the board of directors and quite senior. It's quite known in the industry. And he mentioned this very interesting analogy. Some years ago, Supreme Court mentioned that CBI has become a caged parrot, if you remember. He said that in today's times, RBI has become a caged eagle. It is not allowed to function, and there's a lot of government interference from time to time. And in fact, the recent IWG report which came out, RBI itself said that 4 out of 5 experts did not agree to the recommendations which it's giving out. Somewhere, do you think that there is a lot of interference from the government side, and is it the right way to go as far as the future of the banking sector is concerned?
See, you're asking a very touchy topic of the independence of our institutions in the country, or all kinds of institutions. Why only the central bank? But let's look at it. You mentioned that in the draft report they have mentioned it. That also speaks about their conviction and the independence and the neutrality to say that I did not agree with you, or 4 people did not agree, and I'm mentioning it. That is gutsy. That is confidence. So if they did not have the independence, they would not have written that. And even if they had written it, they would not have. They would have had to face the consequences. So I think there is enough independence. And time and again, this question, and every time, I don't know why if there is a change in leadership, there is always this question asked. And I think that is, according to me, speculation. As an institution, RBI stands tall. While we might have, as an industry, there might be hits and misses that they might have had. I think thanks to them and the pragmatism, we are still able to live stronger. We have withstood various crises. We might say that RBI could have done more on this, RBI could have done better on this. Answer to all that is yes, maybe so. But the point is, which PT teacher is liked by any student? वैसे ही होगा. Banking आप participant से पूछो, how is your regulator? नहीं यार, बहुत पीटता है. Or he makes his work harder.
I'm pretty sure about the comments after this video that I have got a very optimistic panelist right now. How successful do you think has been IBC so far? I mean, has it done its job, since the intent of the bill was very correct? And of course, it was due to the rising number of NPAs. But as of now, do you think IBC has achieved what it was meant for?
I think it's a great start. Has it achieved its objective? But probably time will tell. It's a great start. And why do I say it? In a land where there is so much of complication and almost anybody can go to any court and file something, make a stall, do anything. And हमारा जो domestic capital का appetite है, it has been very, very shallow over the years. And people do worry about, if I bid for this, क्या होगा अगर case आ गया तो. And here government has been extremely proactive. Every time they hit a roadblock with some case at the NCLT, when they say they observe something, they've always come with an amendment to the entire IBC code to make it smoother. And which is why I said it's a great start. And why do I say time will tell? I think there are quite a few of the large cases in front of them.
Bhushan Steel is one of the prime cases.
And I think quite a bit of them will get solved because banks, for example, in the SR case and others, they stood their ground, though it took much beyond the original time frame they had, but it got resolved. So I think if you look at the large scheme of things, the first 3 to 5 years for some of these experiments to shape up, actually forms the system for longer run. So that way, again, I'm very, very optimistic because a thing like IBC also solves the banking issue of NPAs.
Of course.
But of course, the only challenge that I have from the social context or society's context is this. in the Western world, US, UK, Australia में अगर आप bankruptcy declare करते हो, whether individually or institutionally, you are not ostracized. You are not seen as a failure. India में क्या है, अरे bankruptcy ना ये तो crook है. I mean, that has to change. Businesses can fail for various reasons.
Definitely.
As long as there is no malified intent, and if it failed, you have to recognize it and treat it well.
Of course, I mean, failure is not seen wisely in India, not only from startup or entrepreneurship perspective, but also from other perspectives as well. Even failed marriages today, these days, are seen as a failure in life. I mean, of course, that perspective needs to be changed, Srini. Now, I'll ask you one question which I asked to both of the banking panelists we speak to. If you are made the central bank governor tomorrow, what are the 4 changes you would want in the banking system?
A tough one, because I always say there are 3 roles in India, which are the most toughest one in a crisis.
Ministry
RBI
of
governor, RBI governor, chairman of LIC, chairman of SBI. And these are the 3 toughest roles in the Indian economy when the economy goes through a crisis, because all calls go there, all eyes go there. And whatever they do is judged with various filters, and we never understand their pressures and constraints. So I think very first one is there has been attempts to make RBI as a friendly, market proactive organization, build on it. Because today we live in India, we are talking about our demographics being a soft power. And if you want to appeal to a larger audience of the consumers, which is the youth, you must become friendly and speak their language. Demystify finance for them. I'm not belittling the macroeconomics and the fiscal policy that we do. I'm saying translate it simply and have conversations. 2, build an element of open door policy for conversations. I mean, if you talk to bankers who retired bankers, say 15 years or 20 years ago, almost everybody would say they could go fix a time with RBI, have a conversation, talk about ideas, talk about issues, challenges. And you talk to the bankers, you mentioned it, that they see it very, very differently. They see the regulators very differently. What has changed? We're all same human beings. So I think that open door policy of having conversations, it is nothing but market intelligence. And we cannot let it go despite digital, WhatsApp, communication, technology, all. 3, I think more importantly, we have been speaking about financial inclusion for years. Let's make it with a vengeance. Let's say mission financial inclusion. And which means that it is not only looking at, I'll give you the example of agri. Agri lending is a part of priority sector lending, and every bank is supposed to do a certain amount of its balance sheet lending on priority sector. If they don't, they actually end up buying NABARD bonds. That's a regulation. It was great for the time period it started off, and it is still good. There are countless of such ideas, right? What about MSME? What about SME? India is all about MSME and SME. Entrepreneurs है, self-employed है. So अगर आपको वो भी करना है, why don't we bring them also into mainstream conversation? Imagine एक idea आप ले लो, saying 2025 say every bank in the country or lending institution must have 5% of their lending exposure to MSME. I'm saying the conversations that the regulator shows to the mainstream audience, saying this is important for me.
Srini, you mentioned a very touching point again. Instead of ensuring that the bank has an exposure to MSME, should we not say that the bank should have exposure to not only AAA rated companies, but also BBB and lower companies? This was a genuine point which was raised by UK Sinha as well.
So, you're right, which is the very first point I said, right? The business of finance is pricing the risk. But India mein kya hai, when we will compare ourselves with US and UK, udhar junk bond bhi hai, bigta hai. There is a market for it. But in India, we get fascination and fixation for AAA. And
I think that's where NBFCs come into role.
Not only NBFC, even corporates, right? I don't know if you look at this COVID-struck economy, and I'm sure we'll bounce back. There are early signs that we're bouncing back. But my worry is the only AAA we will be left with is the battery. So we will have to go beyond all that and say, we will price the risk. That fixation of, again, a herd mentality. And it comes with, I think, being not having a great debt market. And simple example is capital market. 20 years ago, we had the institutions which blossomed with technology. There was BSE for many, many decades before, and then NSE got established. And both of them went retail with a vengeance. Retail and technology they used. And today there is a capital markets which is very, very savvy. There is no information arbitrage. Information is available real time for you, me as retail investors, institutions, everybody in the same way. Can we make debt markets similar? Can we bring transparency into all that? And then our problem of how will people treat money? How will they lend? Will get solved.
So Srini, on that note, my two last questions to you will be, how should we enhance our debt market? How should we ensure that returns are better? Second, where do you see crypto as a sector going as far as the regulation in India is concerned? We already legalized trading of crypto during the corona times, but where do you see the future of this currency?
The first question about your debt markets, I think it's more our mindset. It's more in our culture that we think that we must go and give money to, I will give money to Abhinav because मुझे मालूम है वापस देगा. And if I have say 10% doubt, can I increase the premium and take some collateral? वो नहीं सोचते हैं. I think we'll have to go beyond it. And I think why am I a little optimistic there is this, the fintech guys who are going to, let's say, who are bringing in a lot of capital, which is almost equivalent to their debt because they're using capital as debt to enter the lending space. They are doing quite a bit of good work on this, both secured and as well as unsecured lending. And they're leading from the front when it comes to digital lending, which means they're using our digital footprint, including the rural markets, including MSME, including SME, and they're actually lending to them. There are various ways that you can use to figure out trade receivables and collaterals to monetize. They're doing that. So I'm hopeful that debt markets will improve as and when we see this. And if for a change, if Government of India can actually raise global debt and not just come to the domestic debt markets, we will have some headway in the domestic debt markets for others to pick up. This year, of course, I don't know how much. It will be a lot of pressure because not only the central government, even the state governments are hitting the local debt markets. So probably from next year, if we can have a plan where our governments actually use sovereign guarantees to go and raise sovereign bonds.
Oh.
And that might open debt markets. To your second question about crypto, I think any policy, we need some consistency. I'm a believer that digital finance, digital currencies are here to stay. Some of the countries have adopted it very well. Some of them have bringing them to mainstream so that if you bring them to mainstream, you'll be able to regulate it. By ignoring them and banning them, you actually don't solve for the problem. You will have to understand it. And that's reality. We actually lost 2 years in the previous ban of cryptos and now it is back. What will be encouraging is to talk about it and talk about it in the mainstream market. And then I think some of these will blossom. Some of these currencies will blossom. Having said that, let us remember that we are not a fully convertible economy yet in the currency market. And there's a long way to go from that to jumping straight to crypto and saying that I'm going to do everything on crypto or any of those Ethereum coins. I think let's be patient there.
Srini, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure, Abhinav.
This was the first episode of Breakdown with Srini. We'll be coming out with more episodes starting next week, where we demystify finance and banking sector and also talk about serious issues, the burgeoning issues in the sector, the ailing issues in the sector, and of course, the blind spots. Thank you very much. Thank you.